So, the question I have for today is, can inanimate objects like a motorcycle be dangerous? Well, you know, for as long as I've had motorcycles, none of them have ever, ran off the path into a tree or gone down the interstate at 85 miles an hour and ran over a pile of chains, or tried to turn through a puddle of hydraulic fluid and low-sided, or went down trying to miss a car that turned in front of it. No, as I remember it, that wasn't my motorcycle that did that. That was me that did that. Let's talk about that.
Making mistakes is human nature, but not wanting to take responsibility for them, unfortunately, is also human nature. When we say or agree with the phrase, motorcycles are dangerous, it's almost like we're giving ourselves permission to accept dangerous or careless behavior and blame it on the motorcycle if anything goes wrong. Looking back, I really didn't know how I made it past my 20s, or as I call it, my crazy phase. Now, admittedly, not everyone goes through this period in life, and some more than others. But one thing is for sure, there was no method to the madness, for lack of a better word. And that was what I found I needed. A method. What if we could identify the very traits and attitudes that put us into dangerous situations and redirect our thoughts before the danger occurs? I think that is sort of automatically happening as we age to some degree or another. I guess you could say these last few years I've been actively trying to avoid becoming a statistic while riding a motorcycle. Call me crazy, but staying safe while riding has become something of a priority. Is it just me, or is the ground getting harder each year? I think as we get older, we realize just how long or how far we've ridden and begin to think about how much longer can we really go. It's like being in the 21st mile of a marathon and realizing we can make it to the finish line, but it's going to not only take pushing our limits physically, but this last stretch is where our mental strategy plays an increasingly important role. When we're young, we're running on pure adrenaline. You might say it gives us an edge, but it's also what gets us into trouble. And on the other hand, as we age, the adrenaline lessens. We begin to replace that unbridled exuberance with something a little more balanced, perhaps even better. In the 1986 movie Top Gun, there's a scene where Iceman tells Maverick that he is unsafe and dangerous, as if flying a fighter plane is something that has no danger associated with it otherwise. That's right, Iceman. I am dangerous. Those words are still in my head almost 40 years later. Except he meant it in a cool movie scene, badass kind of way, whereas I mean it in a talking to myself in the mirror before I ride so I don't hurt myself kind of way. In the real world, and certainly when riding motorcycles, I've found it's best to actively try and not be dangerous. I think the identification and recognition of bad behavior or thought processes are key, but it wasn't until I studied for an FAA exam that I began to see how topics like risk assessment, decision-making, and human behavior had been quantified into a science, maybe even an art form. It turns out the same kind of errors in decision making and attitudes that get pilots into trouble is almost the same for motorcyclists. One area of study in particular really resonated with me and is something I've implemented into my pre-ride routine. Now, one would expect pilot training to involve a lot of areas of study like airspace, weather, communications, loading and performance, how to fly a plane, you know, pilot stuff. But then there are those areas you don't expect, most of which are boiled down into a myriad of acronyms that seem endless. What I found of particular interest were the sections on human behavior and points of weakness in us, how we think, how things affect us on a physiological basis, how we make decisions, and our mental disposition, our attitude. Turns out there are 5 attitudes in particular that have been identified as hazardous that lead to poor or non-existent decision making. You know, it should come as no surprise, but attitudes like being anti-authority, macho, or having impulsivity, invulnerability, and even resignation all can help you unalive yourself, or at the very least, give you a bad day. Now, I don't know about you, but at one time or another while riding a motorcycle, I may have displayed some or all of these characteristics at one point in time, allegedly. But seriously, this is a list that reads like a qualification checklist to ride a motorcycle. I mean, some riders believe these are just part of their culture. I guess in some way it's these aspects that attract a lot of riders. Recognizing our weaknesses are important, but it's what we do as riders to tamp down those emotions or dangerous tendencies that make riding safer. As motorcyclists, we're not really taught about risk management. But to be clear, risk management is not risk elimination. They can't make a motorcycle 100% safe as long as there is a human at the control. But we can certainly reduce the danger by making sure we're at the right frame of mind and body before we ride. Just those 2 things alone eliminate a lot of the risk, allowing us to give maximum focus. Before any ride, I'll ask myself if I'm upset, stressed out, tired, anxious, or riding for any other reason than enjoying the ride. If the answer is yes to any of these, then I might need to postpone that ride. The other side of this is our physiological state. Are we under the influence of any drugs or alcohol? As we age, things like prescription drugs need to be given a second and third look for how they can affect us. Even illness and bodily discomfort need to be considered as possible reasons not to ride. The decision to hop on a motorcycle, insert the key, and take off is solely in our control. We are the dangerous element, and just recognizing this fact is the first step to eliminating the risk of danger when we ride. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you have any comments, leave them in the section below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.